Hey guys, welcome back. Joe Brunsman, insurance broker to the stars. Today, I'm here to talk to you about compliance and why the bad guys might be your new best friend. Now, I've seen this big push in the MSP world where MSPs are talking about compliance and you're super excited about it. You got a vendor. You're probably going to run into the same problem that I had 5, 6, 7 years ago when I wrote my first book on cyber insurance and cyber law. And I'm going out and I'm trying to tell everybody, hey, here's all this stuff I know and all the legal requirements you have. And they just tell you to pound sand because they don't care. And they, I think, rightfully probably assume, hey, what are the odds that, the Federal Trade Commission is going to come after me, or HHS OCR for HIPAA high tech, or any of these other random regulations? What are the odds they're going to come after me? Well, those odds have just gone up because of a different threat. And this is really the one I want you guys to hone in on as you're speaking to your clients about compliance, and you're going to see the thread moving forward here. Now, before we begin, this video is brought to you by crtlaw.com. So for this new year that's coming up here, if you're like, hey, you know what? I want the best contract. I want to have that white glove legal service where I can speak to an attorney and do the whole shebang. Go ahead and swing on by crtlaw.com. Now, if you're a newer MSP or if you're a smaller MSP and you're saying, hey, you know what? I don't really yet need that full legal assistance. I just need to have updated MSAs, SOWs. Go ahead and swing on by xclause.com. All right. Now, when clients hear compliance, you have probably seen something akin to this, where they go, I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to see it. I am too busy doing my own thing, and I don't think the regulators are going to be coming after me. So who cares? I have other things I need to spend money on for my business. Well, I would say traditionally, it kind of makes sense why they had that attitude. Because, you look at it and you say, hey, foremost, there's not that many regulatory actions. I mean, they do hammer people, and you don't want to be the nail to their hammer. But you're like, all right, of the hundreds of medical firm breaches, how many of those guys actually get hit? Well, I was very curious, kind of along those same lines of, all right, well, what are the plaintiffs' bar attorneys doing with this? Are the attorneys going after people? Now, this article I wrote back in 2019, that's yours truly there. On the author line, and I went through literally every single data breach class action claim, and here's what I found. A survey conducted by the author, yours truly, of all known class action claims results in the following. For claims where greater than 200,000 records were exposed, so that's a big nugget. One defendant had $30 million in revenue, the rest were multi-billion dollars. In cases where it was fewer than 200,000 records, excepting one nonprofit medical organization, each had annual revenues above $600 million. So the probability that, you were going to face some data breach class action claim, traditionally, pretty low unless you're a huge organization. The probability that some regulator is going to come after you, probably not that great. The odds that cyber insurance would deny you coverage based on some of this stuff, effectively zero. And all that kind of sucked. Now, remember, I am originally an IT guy. I'm a controls first type of person. I think insurance is kind of when everything has gone to hell. So I tell my insurance clients, it's a little bit different from my MSP clients, but for my pure cyber insurance clients, I will tell them, hey, a good year for you is when I call you once and I take your money. A bad year for you is when we're talking twice. Meaning, hey, you probably had some type of cyber event, correct? Well, traditionally, here's how cyber events have kind of occurred. You had clients, you had the public, you had the MSP, everyone's pointing fingers at each other. But now you do have those class action claims actually coming into the mix in a really big way. And here's what I'm talking about in a big way. So this is a very bad trend for business. Now, if you look down here, back in 2019, there was 200 and some change data breach class actions. 2024, 1,500 data breach class actions. So you're looking at about a 600% increase just in a couple years. So I would say, hey, they are running and gunning for you. Now, 2022 to 2024 effectively doubled. And I would imagine 2025, as I record this video, it's almost done, but it's not done yet. So we will see the 2025 numbers probably in the first couple months of 2026. Just kind of from what I am seeing in the report so far, what I'm hearing from insurance folks at insurance companies, it looks like that number is going to go up even more. Now, certification rates, here's kind of an interesting portion. All right, so if you go back to 2022, you had about a 50-50 split between motions being granted, motions being denied. You go to 2023, man, it was only 14% got denied. So if we go back to our handy little chart here, right? 2022, 2023. And then 2024, you saw about 40% got denied. So what are we really supposed to make of this? It means that, hey, there's a lot more law firms jumping into this. And I would also say this doesn't necessarily mean that you're out of danger if you're a normal business out there. Merely the threat of having a class action claim filed against you is pretty crushing and pretty brutal. So I would say that the plaintiffs' bar attorneys, man, they are adapting. And what are they actually going for here? So they're alleging kind of the same old that I've seen for 10 years. Lost value of their info, overpayment of services, increased spam, emotional distress, misuse of bank accounts, blah, 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 blah. That's not really the interesting part. The interesting part is actually here. It's that the plaintiffs are using those pesky state laws that everybody ignores, as well as showing that the company wasn't adhering to their pertinent data security regulations. So yes, they will pull in HIPAA high-tech and those reasonable data security requirements that you're going to find in various various like federal level statutes, industry specific statutes, as well as in those state breach notification laws that require reasonable cybersecurity. So what does that mean? That means that if you're a business and you're listening to this and you're saying, oh, well, I only have to apply to HIPAA. Not true. There are a bunch of other laws where PHI is listed under PII and you have a reasonable cybersecurity requirement. So this is effectively saying you can't just do the bare minimum anymore. The plaintiff's bar will come after you. All right. Now, remember, hey, unfortunately, being small won't save you. So if we look at this, family law firm, 20 professionals, 12,000 records compromised, that's not that many. Facing a class action claim. CPA firm of 22 partners facing several class action lawsuits. Medium-sized pharmacy retail business, they're facing a class action from their own employees. All right. Over here, you have a 7-attorney law firm in the Southwest. Multiple class actions following a data breach. And then a seafood processor. So it's not that I just went and found the only ones. I just kind of went across different industries to illustrate the point here. So it's everybody from seafood processors to companies being sued by their own employees to legal to accounting, so forth and so on. So this means, hey, no industry is safe from the plaintiff's bar. So please get working on that regulatory environment. Now, from the MSP side, what does this mean? This means, hey, you got that risk, you got that reward, you got that potential pass-through liability. So you need to start taking a hard look at what actually is in your contracts. What are you saying to your clients? Because if your client gets hit, well, now they got to deal with that cyber issue, and that's going to be painful enough. And I know that MSPs traditionally are very worried that their clients might turn around and bring a claim against them. All right, well, now what happens if not only do they have a cyber event, but they also have this current or potential class action claim that they're staring down the barrel of. And hey, oh, by the way, regulators can now use all that wonderful information pulled out of discovery, and they can try and use that in their own regulatory inquiry for additional fines, penalties, assessments, and kind of all that jazz. Suddenly that means, hey, that $1 million policy that your client had, maybe $1 million in cyber may not quite cut it. You got to take a hard look at that. Now, what does all this stuff cost? I'll be the first to tell you, man, I don't have the faintest clue what this would cost for your client. You're going to have to deal with record types, the number of records, the strength of the claim, what were they doing, what were they not doing. The best information I've gotten to date, and who knows how close this is to the absolute fundamental truth, because that's going to be really the secret sauce of the insurance company. We're looking at about $300K in defense costs and about $600,000 in awards to the plaintiff. Now, don't forget, you have those regulatory exposures that I talked about before. So now you kind of see this death spiral going on. Plus, you had to deal with the cost of the initial event. And suddenly that $1 million policy, that may not be looking so great anymore. So you need to be very, very careful here. This can quickly get very expensive for you. So now, kind of some rules of the road here. I would say, hey, if you're an MSP, just talk to your clients about this. Say, hey, you know what? We heard that class action claims are going up. I'd recommend you put this in writing if you're an MSP to cover your butts. Just bring this to their attention, right? Bring it up at the QBR, steal the information whole cloth from this video. I don't care as long as that SMB actually gets the information they need. Now, remember, not every client should be your client, and never let your client's risk tolerance exceed your own. So now that you have this information, if you have one of those clients where you're saying they never listened to me before, their security is already terrible, they have a ton of records, man, now I got to worry that there could be a class action claim. So not only could they get hit and try and sue me, they might run out of insurance courtesy of a class action claim. Now they're going to come after me or trying to join me on a claim or something like that. That has to be part of this calculus. So brush up on those termination provisions. And I would urge you guys, they always say like niches lead to riches. I would urge you folks, hey, focus on a specific, really just one or two regulatory requirements. So that way you can really start understanding what's in that particular statute. What are the interpretations of that statute? What are the main players? What's going on with that particular regulation across the country? That should really help you keep your clients safe. Now, as a CYA in your MSA, I'm getting ready to release a full series on kind of a masterclass for MSAs and SOWs for MSPs, but just kind of a brief note in the interim dealing with this. Remember, MSAs should demonstrate due diligence, limit your financial exposure, and shift that responsibility where is appropriate. So, are you actually providing compliance services? What does your SOW and or your MSA actually say about compliance? What does your contract say you're doing or you're not doing? Are you affirmatively disclaiming compliance? Are you saying, hey, we just want you to know we're going to help you with cybersecurity. We can point you to some regulations that you could fall under, but that's where your attorney comes into play. We'll work with your attorney at his direction. Now, remember, contractually require adequate cyber insurance. That is one of the biggest saviors of your MSP. And then how are you contemplating vendor liability and suitability? That always comes into play. That's more of a new exposure there in terms of, hey, are you, saying like, hey, this is fit for purpose? Is it not fit for purpose? You got to talk to your attorney about that. And remember what I call the mother-in-law conundrum, where my mother-in-law thinks that because I used to be an IT guy and I've got this robotics degree that I know everything about every piece of technology ever made. Very much what I think a jury or a judge will think of your MSP, despite what we know because we're in the technology sphere. All right. So remember that mother-in-law conundrum. That will help you add true specificity to your MSA and your SOW. Moving on, how robust is your limitation of liability clause? Are you dealing with direct, indirect, consequential damages? You need to understand what that means to you, how that interplays with your insurance provisions and the insurance provisions that you are binding your clients to when it comes to them carrying adequate amounts of cyber insurance. Next, how are your indemnification provisions? Do you have force majeure That includes maybe 0 days, nation state attacks, cyber terrorism, things like that. All of this interplays. I'll get into it more ultimately in my MSA masterclass. Now remember, most other industries, they're reviewing their MSA equivalent really every year, maybe every 2 years, but they're not going 5 years without updating. They're not going 10 years without updating. That would just be comically long. Now, especially in this world where the threats are constantly evolving and changing, and you have interplays with insurance, and now you've got this update with the potential for class action claims following a data breach as well, that needs to start being contemplated and discussed. All right. So, defense in depth made simple. You know what? I'm just going to link to a video right above me here in the interest of time, but it really just boils down to, hey, this is in our contract. Next step, I warned you, in this case, about class actions. So, hey, please put it in your QBR, have a follow-up email so that there's some type of paper trail. 3, I warned you in writing, and I have copies. 4, I formally warned you, and that's when you start getting into liability waivers. And then 5 is, of course, hey, fix this or you're gone, and you deal with those termination provisions. All right, folks, hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, share, comment, subscribe so that other MSPs can get this information and keep their business safe. If you click right above me here, the Dark Overlords at YouTube will recommend another video for you. And if you click over there, you can subscribe to my channel. All right, folks, with that, stay safe.